Hi, I'm actually at the airport right now, and I'm wondering to myself, how many people here are transnational? How many people here are traveling for the first time, probably worried about making friends and connections? Actually, how many people already have friends and connections in these countries? Let's talk about sociality in transnational individuals. Hi, welcome back to Transnational Identity, the series, and the video you just watched was me a few weeks ago from me recording this right now when I was traveling to come from my family, actually, from visiting my family. And today I'm gonna throw another big word at you, sociality. So we're back in my office/studio and we're gonna break the word down like we did before, but it is just one word and it is as simple as it looks. Sociality, by definition, is the tendency of groups and persons to develop social links and live in communities. But in this episode, I'm using it as a blanket statement to basically cover all things social: friends, family, and communities. According to my favorite transnational researchers, Nina Glickschiller, Bash, and Blank Santon, we define transnationalism as a process by which immigrants forge and sustain multi-stranded social relations that link together their societies or origin and settlement. We call these processes transnationalism to emphasize that many immigrants today build social fields that cross geographic, cultural, and political borders. I know we already covered the definition of transnationalism, but I thought I should remind you and just show you that at the core of transnationalism, sociality is what started this whole definition in the first place. Now I realize I mentioned to you guys that I have a transnational identity and I identify with the transnational experience, but I never really told you how I'm transnational. So I'm going to do that in 30 seconds and go. My name is Tanyana Zasasha Masare. I am Zimbabwean. I come from a family of 5. I currently reside in South Africa. I've been moving between countries with my family since I was born. All 5 of us have been moving around the world. We have lived, sort of, or had prolonged stays in about 5 countries. We have traveled to almost 30 countries altogether, counting everyone individually and adding it together. And this is mainly because of my dad's job. And with every country I go to, I become attached, and that is why I have a transnational identity. Now that we got that covered, let's get back into sociality. Now, when we talk about sociality, especially in the transnational context, we're talking about how people make friends or socialize when they get into a new environment. So, for example, how you find new communities, how you meet with family, or how you disconnect from the family and friends that you left behind, or maybe stay connected in different instances. Now again, in this episode, you're going to interact with a lot of professionals that I've spoken to, but also a lot of volunteer participants. And I'm going to add a few more to the batch, and I'm going to introduce them to you as I usually do. But the point is, we're going to talk to a lot more volunteers this time, because at the end of the day, it is their story. It is our story. And I want you to fully understand how they managed to socialize as transnationals and why that must be relevant and important to you too. So let's reference the clip that I added in the beginning, the question I asked at the airport. How are these people going to make friends? How are they managing to interact? How was it for them when they arrived at this place for the first time?
With regard to forming communities in university, I mostly formed those communities around shared interests.
And in terms of making friends, especially being an adult, is very difficult. So I was on Bumble BFF, which is the friend side of the Bumble dating app, and that's how I made my first friend in Cambridge.
Well done. You've managed the first step of creating friends when you go to a new place. Now think about this group. What are your friends like? Where are they from? What kind of social circles are you in right now?
So, my friend group is sort of like a mini UN. There's like a lot of us. So I have one guy from, actually, no, not one. I have like 4 or 5 guys from South Africa. I have one guy from Zimbabwe, I have one guy from Nigeria, one from Mauritius, and 3 from China. So it's very diverse.
My social circle is very diverse. There are people, outside the African continent that I still engage with, that I actually look up to, and we get to talk and share ideas.
My friend group is filled with people from different countries, most of them from different African countries, because that's who I relate with as foreigners in South Africa, and we all somehow have the same experience, and also we've left our home countries to come here. So all we have is each other.
Yeah, I'd say my friend group is mostly South African, but I do have quite a few, I'd say, transnational friends as well. One of my really close friends, Lisha, is from Zimbabwe.
When I look at my friend group, it's definitely transnational. My best male friend is Ugandan, grew up in South Africa. My best female friend is Zimbabwean, grew up in South Africa. And, I've got a few other nationalities around me, Mozambicans, Kenyans, other Zimbabweans now, and also South Africans.
I have a lot of international friends now because of connections, and the university is just an international university. There's a lot of students. So yeah, I have friends from the UK who are local, and then a friend from Malaysia, a few from the US, others from Nigeria, and some from South Africa and Namibia.
I would say most of my, basically all of my friends are outside Mozambique. There are Indians included, but there are people that live in countries like the UK or Zimbabwe. There aren't any Indians from India that I'm friends with.
So in addition to the interviews I had with these individuals, I also had a set of questions that I sent out to transnational individuals that didn't have the chance to sit down with me. And the responses were quite interesting. One of the most frequent responses that I got was how they were unfortunately disconnected to some of the family events that were happening and social events as well. According to the survey, only 36.7% of the participants participated in events from home. But in the same survey, most of them admitted that because of their new social circles, 40% of them often participate in activities where they currently reside. 20% always participate, and only 14% are really involved. Who's in your social circle can sometimes change depending on where you are or who you found most comfortable to hang out with. And sometimes these social circles are extremely different from the ones you have back home.
For most of my friends and family, our relationship has become a bit weaker by virtue of the fact that I am not involved in the social activities and events going on.
I don't frequently speak to my friends and family from England and Ireland, but I will make an effort to stay sort of in touch on a sort of several month basis, or kind of just touch base, but I wouldn't say it's a frequent contact.
So just like any relationship, it changes and it fluctuates, and most relationships falter when you move around. But there's something interesting that they also mentioned, something that you can already guess. They managed to maintain most or some of these relationships through social media. But we're going to get into social media a bit later. So now we've covered the whole friends area. You've made friends, they're weird, they're diverse mix, they're normal. Friends are different, and they're probably never going to be the same, but that's fine because those change. But some connections don't change. Family, for example.
I think when you do grow up in a country that's not where your extended family isn't, it can be very hard for you to nurture those relationships. So for example, I think when we went back home, a lot of the times, my dad, who grew up in Zimbabwe and obviously is close to his extended family, his cousins, I think it was easier for him to build that connection for us. But for me, there are some people that can come up to me and be like, we're family. And I'd be like, but I've never seen you. And it's because, I grew up in South Africa, very far away from my extended family. But in terms of my immediate family, yes, we definitely maintain our relationships, via WhatsApp.
I had this conversation with my aunt who's a nurse in Ireland, and she was telling me how even for her it's a struggle to keep in touch with her relatives because
she's in a different context. She's doing her own thing.
I'll say that in general, I do talk to my family, both the close, the far, and distant, everything. I definitely do try to keep a strong standing with family. And the reason why I more or less put myself, or like put that as a challenge to keep in contact with people, is you realize that as you get older and as you move further into the world, the things that matter most are the small things, the small moments, the giggles, the laughs, and those experiences with those you care and love. So that is my main priority, really.
I am so glad I introduced you to a bit about myself, especially in this episode, because I'm going to have a few special participants that are going to be involved in this episode. My own family. Now, of course, you can see that there's someone missing in this group of people, but that's okay. I've spoken to my dad before. I had him in the previous videos. Maybe we'll chat with him later. But in this specific episode, I want to hear from my mom, specifically because my mom has been the anchor for our family, regardless of where we went, regardless of where we traveled. And of course, she would travel as well. But her input is specifically unique and very insightful, especially when it comes to sociality.
I'm Tanya's mom. I live in Zimbabwe. I have traveled quite a bit. Being away from all of my family, which is the heart of my family, we are separated most of the time. It's education, it's work, and it's also just the way our life was from the beginning. We have to make time to meet and have quality time, special time, and make the most of it, because some of it is very short. Because now with the countries that have different holidays, different school calendars, we learn a lot. My comfort zone is through media.
My mom has kept us connected, and she continues to do so, especially in that group, that WhatsApp group. Now, you realize WhatsApp and social media groups are a part of sociality as well, right? Let's get a little bit into sociality in media.
So I'm Dr. Henrietta Nyamjo, and I'm a researcher and I teach at UCT. And it's just been so fascinating to see how migrants are redefining technology. Perhaps even the makers of technology did not know that this is how technology would come to be used amongst migrants, how they have shaped it. Technology is shaping them, and the two have formed this bond, this inescapable bond, that they work together to break barriers, to relate to family, to relate to friends. People are mobile while sitting because of technologies.
Long distance means you really can't see each other face to face, but thank God for the development of technology. We can communicate as if we're literally next to each other 24/7. Now, a lot of research has been made into WhatsApp and Facebook connection groups, and there are good sides and bad sides, just like with anything else. These social media groups are not just to send memes, communicate in life events, and send weird birthdays to cousins that you even forgot you had. They're also to keep us connected, but in that connection, sometimes it can pull us apart, ironically.
I think the development of communication tools like the phone is a huge one. But it can also complicate relationships. You know, often people have said that it makes people feel closer, but it can also make people feel a lot further away, because you don't always want, like some people, like speaking over this kind of communication, you don't have that physical touch, you don't have that spatial awareness. For some people, that's really hard. Like the only reason why I speak to my sister every day is because we're so close, and we do speak every day, so we're used to each other. We know exactly what's going on in each other's life. But for example, I find it really hard to speak to my mother that often, because sometimes I'm in a bad mood and I don't want to talk to her, but like she's calling and I have to answer. Whereas when we're in the same space, you can get that body language, and I don't have to overtly say, oh, I'm feeling down or I'm feeling sick, you know.
So beyond groups, you also have the DMs, the face-to-faces, the video calls, which again, wonderful development. Keep us connected. Obviously, I can see your emotions, but then really think about it. There's some situations that are beyond your control that video just doesn't crack it, just like what my mom said. Imagine you're having a chat with a friend and obviously they're going through a really tough time. They're a friend from home, of course. And they start to break out in tears and you can't really do much because the connection is buffering. And then suddenly they're just looking at this black box and they already struggle with sharing emotions. And now you're trying to reach out, say something, they're crying, and then your connection breaks. Social media is great. And we need it, obviously, to keep connected to our family and friends, but clearly it doesn't really do the trick, especially when it comes to those situations. Sometimes it even desensitizes us from these connections that we have at home, these connections that we're just keeping solely online. Sociality has so many layers. It is your friend group that you hang out with and have coffee and tea with all the time. It is your class and the group that is fighting in the middle of a semester. It is the family group you're currently ignoring. It is the community, the church you go to, the hobby you have, your aunties and uncles, your mentors. Sociality is so important, especially in the transnational context where already there's this looming fear and looming terrifying feeling of being foreign. More likely than not, you need that connection, that foundation, whether it's at home or in the place you're at. And that is why sociality is an important transnationalism topic, because it just seems like something we're overlooking for the most part, but it is the foundation. Like I said earlier, the foundation of transnationalism is in sociality. Because for you to classify yourself as transnational, you have to have a social life or at least some sort of social connection in both your country of origin or the country you're currently residing, or the countries you go to. Because in each country, in each place that you connect with, the places you call home, the places you find yourself in, that's where your social groups comes from. That's the whole idea of sociality in transnational individuals. So now I'm sure you're tired of hearing me chatting on this couch, but that's fine. I'm just gonna throw us back to the airport, and Airport Me is gonna wrap up this episode.
Do you know what's funny? So my mom and my sister just drove me to the airport, and when we got here and they dropped me off and everything is nice and we're hugging goodbye, I laughed and I said, "See you in December." They laughed back. And it sounds crazy to someone passing by, and the fact that we laughed is kind of like a sad reality. We're so used to it and we know that we're probably going to meet then. But that's where I think the advantages of connection, sociality comes in. We learn to connect beyond what we're used to, beyond face to face, and create connections that we would never have if we hadn't left, if we hadn't moved, if we hadn't gone to work or to school. And on top of that, because of how we connect through media, through WhatsApp, we're able to continue our bond. We're able to still speak the same language. And I think that branches us into a very interesting category, don't you think?